All right. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to SIBB HR Talk, organized in cooperation with our partners, Peakon and Zalando. My name is Marzena, and I work for SIBB as a project manager, international business, and I will be your host today. For those who don't know us, we are a digital business association in Berlin-Brandenburg, and one of our main goals is to foster cooperation and knowledge exchange between IT businesses from the region. In order to give you a better overview of what we do and who we are, I would like to play a short introduction video. Second. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the video and it helped you to better understand our mission. In case somebody has any additional questions about our association or potential cooperation opportunities, please feel free to approach me after the fireside chat in our virtual networking lounge. Speaking of which, before we start, I would like to address a few organizational issues. As you probably saw, we started our webinar in so-called virtual networking lounge, where we actually gonna move back after the fireside chat in order to get to know each other and connect, exchange experiences. And yeah, a few networking tips for that. You can freely switch between the tables with a double click. Plus, you can also connect your avatar with your LinkedIn profile in order to easily connect with other participants. In case if you have more questions about that, please feel free to send me a message on the chat. Besides that, I mean, last but not least, if you have any questions during the fireside chat, please use the Q&A section located on the upper right corner of the screen. And after the fireside chat, we're gonna, speakers are going to address them and try to answer them. At this point, that's it from my side, and I would like to invite our speakers, Patrick and Katrin, to join me on the stage here on the main screen. And I think we're ready to start the fireside chat. Hello, Katrin. Hello, Patrick. How are you guys feeling today?
Good. Very good.
Doing good. All right, so I'm very excited what we're going to learn from you today. And in case somebody has some technical difficulties, I'm going to be on the background. And as I mentioned before, after the fireside chat, we'll address all the questions from the Q&A section. And that's it, basically. I wish you a great conversation. I will see you after.
Sounds good. Marzena, thank you very much. Katrin, it's very good to see you. And everybody that's joining, thank you for joining us this afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I thought I would just start out with putting some context around the conversation today. I'm super excited that Katrin and I will be able to chat with you a bit, and more specifically, Katrin's going to give us a whole bunch of insights as far as her role and perspective on the topic today. So as we know, to frame the conversation, as we know, over the past few months, employee well-being has absolutely increased as a priority for all of our organizations, probably more than it ever has before. And employees across the world are concerned about their well-being, and leaders in organizations are very positive, but at the same time, there is a realistic challenge for us as organizations and as leaders with the new expectations around supporting our teams with not only well-being, but also with mental health. As we know, people are the heartbeat of our organizations. They are the fabric of our internal culture, and the world of work is just significantly changing, and we're all figuring out what our next chapters are and how we're going to build this new world of work together. And really, every employee is part of that process in building this new world of work. So a key priority for all of us is absolutely to keep the focus on employee health and well-being. So Katrin is joining me today, Katrin Terwijl. She leads health and equity at Zalando. Zalando is Europe's leading platform for fashion and lifestyle. They have around 14,000 employees across Europe. And Katrine, maybe we could just start out with you telling us a little bit more about Zalando, a little bit about your role and what a typical day looks like for you.
Happy to do so. Thanks for having me. I would maybe start with the role, since it's, I would say, a rather untypical role, but it turned out to be a very interesting combination where also the topics have a bit of overlap. So my role is called Senior Team Lead Health and Equality Management. What does that mean? Health management is not only absence management, looking on people on sick leave. It's very holistic approach, and is, to me, very close to the definition of World Health Organization for health, and it says it's not only the absence of sickness, it's more the total well-being, total state of well-being. And to me, that's being totally able to work, being totally able to perform, being happy doing so. So that means our team is really looking into organizational structures, into tools, into training, into behavior, and not only into what do we do if people are sick, but rather how do we keep people healthy. And equality management is a small confidential team located in HR, in P&O, as health management is as well. And we are there for grievances around anti-discrimination or discrimination. If somebody has a grievance, it's normally not about anti-discrimination, and about harassment or sexual harassment. It's based on a German law called General Equal Treatment Act, AGG, and that's why we called it equality management. I know there are a lot of discussions also, why not calling it equity or equality, but that's where the name comes from. It's not the diversity and inclusion team, that's a separate team, but we are working very closely together. And that means that I'm also a team lead, and having my direct, so I'm also struggling with remote leadership as other leaders do.
Absolutely. And what about your background? So you have a quite interesting background in psychology, and you've studied that quite a bit. So maybe you could tell us a bit about how you've arrived at the point in your career that you're at today.
It's I'm asked that very often because I think it's also a bit untypical, similar to the role. I've studied psychology, and I've had both clinical psychology, and it was called work, occupational, and organizational psychology. And I was able to finish both. I think it's not possible anymore with masters and bachelors now, but with diploma it was, and I'm super happy about it because it was always close to my heart. Like, both topics were close to my heart, and so I became a psychotherapist. But I've always also worked with companies, trained leaders in companies on mental health or health, and I've worked as a consultant, so it has always been in my life together. And then I had my private practice as a psychotherapist in Kreuzberg, seeing patients, and then I came across this job ad from Zalando, and it spoke to me, and here I am. And I think that is why I have always emphasized a lot also on mental health, or on behavioral changes are not easy, and it's not that you just tell people to eat healthy or to move more and then they do. It's of course tricky, and we need to look at the framework as well.
Well, it sounds like you have a very strong knowledge background about the topic, and I'm sure, like you said, a very unique role within Zalando that is quite important for a large organization, a complex organization. So before we jump into the specific topics, I think it might be good to tell the audience a little bit about Zalando so they can understand how your role and your background supports the organization and what the company does.
Yeah, I brought a small video which I would play for getting started. I hope it works. 1 second. Share video. And save. It works.
Perfect.
Whoever wants to see it in bigger can click on the screen. Okay. Do I have to switch that off somehow, or is that fine? It just stays there. Okay. So as you can see, it's a huge variety of topics. Some people think we are a fashion company. Some people would say we are a tech company. Some people say we are a startup. Some people say we're the biggest employer, one of the biggest employers in Berlin, which is also true. And I think it's everything, and that's why it's also super interesting. And on the other hand, challenging for employees. It's a lot that's happening. Everybody's super creative, and so things happen fast. Otherwise, we wouldn't have grown so fast. So I think that's the first challenge for health. However, what I can also share about Zalando is that I feel Zalando is very value-driven, and an important value has always been diversity and inclusion. Being on having the diversity guild. Now we have a lot of employee resource groups, a diversity and inclusion team, my team, and it's something that is very important for all of our employees as well. We have 140 nations working for Zalando. So it's super important for the company, as well as sustainability, which is not our focus for today, but that's also an important value that most of Zalando's employees share. I'm saying most because I can't speak for all, but in every discussion that we have, this comes up, and it's super important. And Zalando has set science-based targets on sustainability, so that's also super important for Zalando and for things that we are striving for. Something else you would like to know about the company?
I think that's great. I think particularly the idea or the fact that you have such a diverse workforce, and as we talk about the topics today, there's probably many people on the call that are also in the same situation where they have many different nationalities that are working in their organizations, different backgrounds, and so I think you're positioned quite well to be able to talk today about some of these topics. So let's jump right in. We're going to talk about 3 topics today. First, we're going to talk about obviously employee well-being, some of your ideas on how organizations can prioritize specific areas that they can see benefit on that focus area over the next few months, as we're all moving into this new world of work. The second area that we'll talk about is employee mental health and some new realities that are directly impacting it. The third area is around this concept of psychological safety, how important it is for us to bring our full selves to work and to be in an environment, and it definitely has a direct impact on an employee's sense of belonging. So we'll focus the conversation in these 3 areas. So Katrine, let's start out with employee well-being. And what do you think are some of the most effective ways that organizations today can focus on employee well-being, and potentially some priority areas that they need to keep in mind over the next few months as our organizations are evolving?
Maybe what I can share upfront is our situation during COVID times. So in March and April, it wasn't clear how the company would develop, because first we also experienced a drop in shares in GMV. So at the beginning, it was also insecure, and some people said you don't have to worry, it's e-commerce, but it wasn't clear from the beginning. And now it's a super interesting time where Zalando grows, and especially in terms of off-price, and we are also working on connected retail, so connecting a lot of offline stores with Zalando, which is also super important for those stores. So it's a challenging phase. However, it's different to maybe other companies where people lose their jobs, or where people fear to lose their jobs. I feel we are at the moment quite safe. in the beginning, we had a huge savings package, focusing really on keeping employees, so keeping the workplaces, keeping people healthy. And we had lots of COVID work streams focusing on various areas. So if you want to deep dive into that later on, let me know. What I would like to speak about now is what health management means for me. And it's going to be a lot of buzzwords, I feel. And if they are new for someone, please make a note or write something in the Q&A already, and I'm happy to deep dive later on. So what companies can do, and a lot of these things are done by my team. So some of them, I think, also joined the meeting today, so you can maybe even network afterwards, or let us know after the event if you want to network. We, for example, a team that's called Health Prevention and Promotion, and they have provided sports courses and massages before the pandemic, and we had to adapt very quickly and are now focusing on online sports, remote sport offers, a sports app that is engaging, where you can receive points for being active, and it's obviously a lot about community building while not being together. Then it's a lot about information. How do I act during a pandemic? What's our guidelines in the office? What about vaccination of influenza? So we communicate a lot as Zalando, but also as health team. I think we have never been more in contact with our employees. So I think that's something that's also very important at the moment. Then, of course, you can think about leadership and employee trainings, coaching. What is especially important is also letting people know what resources are there, what support offers are there. It might be easier in a smaller company, but in our company, we offer a lot from HR side, but people don't know about it, and they are super confused when they find out. So I think a lot of effort has to go into just telling people what is already there and how to use it. And therefore, we are thinking a lot about multiplier approaches. How can we leverage our knowledge, maybe a health multiplier academy, and then people can spread the word and can engage with communities. Of course, our occupational medicine offer has been very important and has also been offered remotely. And we also further offered our long-term sickness management tool called BEM, which I'm a huge fan of. It sounds very traditional, and it's a traditional concept in a way, but I really like that the company reaches out to someone who has been off sick very often or for a long time and offers something to come back safely. It's really like a workability coaching offered by a neutral coach. And I really like this idea, especially in these remote times, because you might not know that somebody is really suffering, that somebody needs help, because you don't see the person. People can switch off the camera when they don't feel well, and if you have them in the office, it's easier to see. Then of course it's important to have data to think about how can we analyze health, and as I said, not only absence but well-being, and how would a health score look like, a business health score, or do we just look at engagement, or do we have other ways to measure health? And the so-called corporate health assessment is a very interesting instrument. There are a lot of tools out there that really deep dives into health and gives you more information than just who is absent and who is there. And of course, it's very important that my team is closely connected to DNY, but also to New Work. And last but not least, I want to mention our team that's called Employee Assistance Service, which is similar to an employee assistance program. And we are huge fans of so-called hybrid models. So we tend to have one expert team in our team, and then an external offer as well, so that people can choose, and we have the pros of both sides. And EAP is really a hotline where you can call 24/7, and your flatmates can call, your family members can call for any health question, even for financial problems, for legal questions. And that is really important and really used a lot at the moment, especially when you have international workforce that might not really find their way through the German health system or whatever country you live in.
Good. And then we were talking a little bit about some focus areas that you have. You have a couple of four focus areas that your team has right now.
Yeah, so I think we have in the last month more than ever looked at specific offers. How can we make tailored products for families or new joiners? So for families, we looked into caretaking matches. Can employees support each other with caretaking? For new joiners, we were introducing buddy systems because we felt like there are some people who just moved to Berlin. They can't even, how would they find new friends, and how would they discover the city? Also we've invested a lot in explaining the health system, from flow charts to being in meetings to have health buddies. So I think that was super important and will be important during the next month. Then, as I just mentioned, community building will be important for us. So if people just do their thing, maybe there are some people who want to connect and to work out together. Before we had classes on site and people were dancing Zumba together. And how do we now connect them? And if they want to do Zumba remotely together, how can they know about each other? And then, as I also mentioned, the mental health support will be very important going forward and has been very important because it's a challenging time. Some people feel happier than before, but some people really feel severe consequences on their mental health, and that's of course a focus area, especially since it's super hard if people can't visit their families at the moment, for example, and things are going on in their private lives and they can't be there. And then the physical health around eyes, shoulders, necks. We're all, so at least myself, I'm staring at my screen way more than I did before. And I still don't feel that my workplace is ergonomically sound. But so that's a huge challenge and a focus area as well.
I think the key there is that you are providing a lot of different opportunities for your employees to choose what is needed for them. And I think that is something that is key, is variety in the offerings around employee well-being, because like you said, some people are very interested in team sports activities or team group activities, and then other people are very interested in where they live or understanding what's going on in their region. So this opportunity for the employee to choose what is best for them and best for their well-being, because there's really no one size fits all solution, right? Like every employee is unique, and providing a wide opportunity of options for employees seems to be an area of success. One of those focus areas that you talked about is around employee mental health support. And mental health has become, as you said, we have these fragmented workforces. People aren't in offices like they used to be. They can just turn their camera off, and or it's a little bit easier to be detached from your community or from your teams with fragmented workforces as they are today. So how have you seen the current environment directly affect employees' mental health? And what do you think are some ways that we can either make some potential changes in our businesses or focus areas to positively impact employee mental health?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. While you were saying it's important to offer a lot of choices, I also thought I haven't even thought about that before mentioning this here, but I think it's important. I think for mental health, it's good to have options, and you can really see what fits to you, and it's really not one size fits all. But on the other hand, especially when you're in a crisis, it's super important not to have 10 different numbers and emails and offers, but rather one team or one email address where you can address your thoughts or concerns, and a bit of the helpline in a way. So that's what we are, for us, it's also still a journey, because during COVID times, we had our management board saying, for questions, reach out to health@zalando.de, and then suddenly we had all kinds of questions. But I think for that time, being in a crisis, that was also good, and that's what we can learn from it. So especially in crisis, having opportunities, but also having one channel is important. Consequences on mental health is some people, lots of people report that they feel a bit more effective, that they feel less stressed by commuting, for example, that they feel they have more time with their families or dogs. But that's can also be the other side of the medal of the coin, that maybe that's stressful because you have your kids around and you like them, but it's not easy to work with them. So it can also lead to emotional exhaustion in another way than work did before. It can lead to loneliness if you don't have your household around you. Some people say it's engagement goes up because suddenly work fits so much more to my private life and it makes so much sense. And others say, well, I still don't feel part of the team. I feel I had my onboarding, but to really feel it, I would love to have my team by my side. So onboarding for me is a real challenge, so that somebody really feels connected. If you already work with a team for 1.5 years, it's so much easier remotely. And especially getting to know people around you that are not your closest stakeholders and that you would normally meet in the kitchen. And in the kitchen, you would also talk about maybe about your private life if you feel like it, but how would you do so in the remote setup? Would you say in a meeting, wait for 5 minutes, I would like to talk about my dog being sick? You won't probably. So who listens to that? So that's the main areas where I feel remote work has an impact on. Also, there are a lot of studies that domestic violence has increased. So for those who are not very happy in their relationships or who have conflicts in their families, it can even be threatening or really dangerous. That's very important to know. So we also, for example, then published information about domestic violence and what to do and what helplines are online, because statistically it could be relevant for employees. And of course, this remote working brings life and work very close together, and there are no clear borders. For example, I find it challenging to detach when not being on my bike, and so luckily I have my dog now, so then it's our evening round, and then I feel like, okay, now it's done. But I felt it was easier before to really say this is work and this is private life, and this is also what studies show. So that can also lead to some problems in the future, I guess, mental health wise. As I just said, I think it's also important to not just guess what problems are, but trying to measure it with tools like a pulse check or corporate health assessment, or having very clear grievance mechanisms or helplines at place, because otherwise you would just assume what your employees are going through, but you would never know. So I think that's my thoughts on these questions mainly.
Great. And there's some interesting ideas that we were talking a bit about around some tangible things that could be implemented into the workplace. And again, creating some different opportunities for either people to connect socially at work, have some fun, So what are your some thoughts around some tangible things that organizations could get creative around implementing that would have, or that could potentially have, a positive impact on employees' mental health?
Here I can share my learnings. I'm not sure if that fits to every team. And that's also a bit a cultural question, maybe an age question as well. But for example, I feel what companies could do is introducing meeting-free slots or meeting-free days, and really trying to steer this whole talking with the screen time and having more strategic work. So, and if the company doesn't do it, you can do it with your team. My team and myself, we have agreed on a meeting-free Thursday, and normally we don't schedule meetings on Thursday with each other, and that already helps a lot. If all of us do it, then suddenly it works. We also introduced a remote team coaching with a neutral moderator, a systemic coach, and she visited us remotely every 6 weeks. And we had a safe space to just talk about how we feel, and we did very interesting exercises like, do you agree to the following statement? And if yes, so we had a paper on screen like this, and then or the hand, and then whenever we agreed, we just did this. You didn't have to say something, but suddenly you found, oh, interesting, all of us agree on this. And we try to always introduce some special ideas, like Dress Up Wednesday. We have dressed up every Wednesday for our team meeting for 12 weeks with various themes, from zoo to your favorite saying. And so it was a lot of fun to join the team meeting on Wednesdays, and I was always very curious how my team would look like, and if I would know what zoo animal they have chosen. And for example, we've also decided to send around a parcel with lots of things in it, and then you can take out one present, put in something else, and send it further. And it's still traveling for weeks now, and I'm still curious what is in there. And it feels bonding as well. Yeah, so lastly, I just think we need to talk about mental health, and how are you is really a standing item on my JF with my directs. And whenever somebody becomes my direct, I explain this and say, you know, when I ask you, how are you, I really mean it. And I mean it in a way, how are you in your role? How are you in your private life? How are you with your tasks, with myself? And share what you want to share, but my door is always open for those topics. So these are my key learnings.
Another area that I've been trying to focus on is helping my colleagues with email inbox management, because something that is a challenge is feeling that stress of having an inbox of 100 unread emails. And I read an article recently that was actually from last year, but it was just recently surfaced again. And starting out the subject of your email saying, not urgent, nice to read, or please read, need a decision, but basically having a statement at the beginning of the subject line so that a person can very quickly feel that they have some sort of control over what they need to look at right away, what is urgent, what needs a decision, and really what's a nice to read, because there's a lot of email that we get that really is not urgent, and but that feeling of opening your inbox and having 100, 200 emails, that causes anxiety and stress for a lot of people. So I thought that was an interesting concept of, you know, being able to help others with potentially, you know, how they perceive their morning when they open their email for the start of their day, and trying to help them start their day in a bit more of a positive space as opposed to a stressful, my gosh, I have 200 emails to get through, and I don't know which one is the most important.
What I found very important is that we had a team email address for health questions. We introduced a ticket system, and it's not very user-friendly for us, but it was a huge relief for me to know when I'm sick, there is not a COVID email suddenly in my inbox or a grievance, and we could work on shifts and support each other. That might not be a solution for every team, but for me, that was a huge relief.
That's good. Okay, so one last topic we're going to talk about, and then we'll go to Q&A, which is around this concept of psychological safety. So that's never really been more important than it is today, this sense of belonging. And but I think maybe we could start out with, you could just give us the 1 minute overview of your perception of, or how would you describe psychological safety, and how it impacts employee experiences in the workplace?
Sure. I think there are a lot of definitions out there, but I think the most important question is it, is it risky to be yourself, or can you risk something while still feeling secure? Can you be yourself, and can you ask questions? Can you try things out? Do you feel like, if I fall, they will have me, and if the question is stupid, that's okay. I'm still loved. So a bit like a child, like imagine a happy childhood. And I think it's very important, maybe the most important thing for team effectiveness. So Google has done a lot of studies around it, for example, and they said it's like the basis. After this, you can talk about structure, clarities, tasks, meaning of work. But if people don't feel safe, they might spot mistakes, but they won't speak about it. They might feel uncomfortable, but they won't talk about it. And they might, I don't know, dress up in a way that they don't feel comfortable with. They might think about what to say too much, and then not really using their full potential. So I think from effectiveness, performance, but also humanity perspective, it's underestimated at the moment, I would say. Yeah.
Being able to bring your full self to work is, there's so many aspects of that, and what an individual's full self is just so unique. And being able to create an environment that supports everybody coming in and feeling that they are in a safe space to be themselves, and like you said, not constantly be thinking or overthinking about one aspect, because that can be a limiting factor in the concept of psychological safety. So Katrine, any last thoughts? You've shared a lot of really interesting perspective, but a lot of tangible perspective, not only from an organizational side, but from your leadership perspective of being a team leader and leading a group of people yourself, the concept of bringing in different technologies to help organizations, keeping different options open for employees, but also being focused in certain areas, because sometimes too many options cause unneeded challenges or stress within an organization in particular, depending on what the situation may be. And sometimes keeping things very focused is really the way to go. But are there any other last thoughts that you want to share with the group before we go to Q&A?
Well, I just unmuted myself. I just thought about an email signature from a colleague of mine that says, working with me. And then if you click on it, it's like a small handbook about him, what he likes and what he values and how he likes to do meetings. And of course, that might have downsides, because then what do you do if you have two handbooks and they are conflicting? But I find that a very nice idea to say we are all unique, and we might have our small neuroses or things that we really like, and that made me smile while thinking about it.
I love that idea. I think I'm going to take that up, and even now, when people are onboarding at organizations and never meeting other people that they work with because they're remote or fragmented and they may not be going into an office for months. So what a great way for people to make a little bit more of a personal connection when they can't just meet up in the canteen or in the office and say hello. So I think that's a great idea. Katrine, thank you very much for your insights and your perspective. I think it's been very interesting. Marzena, I think we can go to Q&A now, if that works for you.
Hello guys, I'm back. Thank you so much for your contribution and interesting experiences. The Q&A, for now we have only one question for all I can see. So what is the key lesson from the pandemic for you, Katrine? Is there anything new you learn? I think it's an anonymous question, so.
I think what's the key learning? I think every team had a key learning or various key learnings. But for me, it was really the moment where we felt, okay, now the most important thing is that we are in this boat together. We need to be healthy and safe and make sure that people don't lose their jobs. And what can we do for it? And huge internal mobility, and teams stopped their jobs and just supported COVID management. And our most senior leaders took over workstream leadership, and then suddenly it was like a new organization and new reporting lines just to make sure that we survive this pandemic. And that has shown us that internal mobility is super important, and we will invest further in that. So I think that was that was the main learning.
Great, thank you for sharing your experience with us. We have one more question from Eric. When you think about bringing your full safe to work, what are some tips make this part of the culture?
I think it's important to write down expectations. We have a code of ethics, for example. So really make a statement somewhere. What is the expectation? And I would say it's something that you can't only solve top down. It needs a lot of discussions in teams as well. It's leadership enablement. Inclusive leadership is a very important buzzword as well, which I believe in. There are very cool trainings out there. And as I'm responsible for grievance mechanisms, I also believe that it's important to have a very trustful grievance process that can be used anonymous, but also in person. So I feel that surfaces where problems are. Of course, not every problem is surfaced to us, and it doesn't have to be, but that really shows us if we have blind spots and if the management needs to know something that they otherwise wouldn't.
All right, thank you very much. Eric, if you would like to discuss this topic with Catherine in depth, please stay for a networking session with us. We have one more question from Karina Spiegel. Is there anything you would like to keep after the pandemic, whenever that will be, that you have changed or adapted during COVID times?
Like personally, I think it's great to be at home from time to time, but I also miss the office a lot, and I hope that we keep the flexibility. I wish that we differentiate a bit more what exactly means office and what is home. At the moment, there is a risk to just copy paste one thing to the other, and I hope that the office will be a very engaging place in the future.
Slightly less crowded. I wish it just stays, like a hybrid working culture. So it's up to you if you would like to work from office or from home, but I'd say it's personal thoughts. All right, I think we're done with all the questions, guys, and it's time for us to meet the other participants and connect. So let's move back to the networking lounge. One just quick message for all the participants. If you would like to talk to Katrin or Patrick, they will be available for you in a separate tables. The tables are named, so you can find them and join the discussion. I ask more personal questions. Thank you so much, guys, for your time and the contribution today. And I wish you good health and great rest of the week. And let's hope we're going to keep in touch for our next webinars. All right, see you soon in the networking lounge then.